As Consulting Engineers of Alberta celebrates its 35-year history, it's time to honor those who founded CEA and help build awareness for the consulting engineering industry in Alberta. Elmer Brooker, Harold Page, Norm Lawrence, and Stan Lawrence all played key roles in Alberta's consulting engineering industry. They are the 2012 recipients of the Alberta Lieutenant Governor's Award for Distinguished Achievement. In the 1970s, it was evident that consulting engineers in Alberta needed to define themselves as a distinct industry. Elmer Brooker rallied 5 firms together to create CEA, an association that could speak with one voice on behalf of the industry. He brought Harold Page on board to give CEA the administrative support it needed.
The creation of the Consulting Engineers of Alberta, I think, stemmed from a need for representation of a community of engineers that were in the marketplace, as it were, as compared to employees of organizations.
We felt that we needed some organization behind us that would give the consulting industry a real voice. It became a professional organization, and the APEGA gave it a very strong support also.
CEA was formed at the end of the 70s, and in the early 80s, of course, you had the energy policy of the federal government, which we don't have to remind ourselves too often in Alberta what that was. Within weeks of this being declared, we had to rationalize our staff because a lot of the projects were cancelled. CEA was one of the organizations that allowed us to speak to the provincial government, to indicate to them that infrastructure work would be a good thing to be initiating at that time to keep the engineering professions and also the consulting firms going. So those early years were certainly years in which CEA proved its existence.
The evolution of CEA was interesting because when we were able to get a province-wide group of people interested, there was a need to meet and discuss the issues that we were concerned about. It cost money, so we had to levy a small fee, and with that goes administration. But consulting engineers are busy people. Now, as it turns out, I was involved with the Alberta Chamber of Resources, and Harold Page was the managing director. Because I was involved with both, I saw a need for the Chamber of Resources to utilize the space and staff they had to a broader extent than they were. So we made a deal with Harold. They said, sure, we'll allow the use of our facilities. And Harold devoted a percentage of his time to managing our affairs. And it simply grew and flourished from there. Harold was a man of great capability, and we were fortunate that the needs of both organizations existed and were able to be put together.
But Harold's life has been one, prior to the Chamber, has been one of very senior and very high responsibilities in the chemical engineering field. When you're working with them, as I did, it was a joy. I learned an enormous amount from Harold Page on behavior, number one, but on what people should expect of people that are in the professional side of supplying services. And he passed that on and is still passing it on.
Well, Harold Page has had a big role in my life. When I was first getting my practice underway, I would spend part of the time going out to solicit work to see people and sell my services. And Harold was the head of Great Canadian Oil Sands, the top man in Edmonton, and he made himself available to talk to me. As time went by, we met again through the Chamber of Resources, and ultimately one of my daughters married one of his sons, so he's in the family, as it were, now as well. He's a brilliant person and has an encyclopedic mind, and at the age of 90 some odd years is very bright.
Elmer was in the Faculty of Engineering, and he was there a short time before he decided to become a consultant and set up his own business. The company that he set up, CEA Engineering, has become one of the most successful consulting engineering companies in Western Canada. Elmer, as an individual, gained a reputation as one of the leading geotechnical engineers in Western Canada.
CEA Engineering, they got involved in the supply of geotechnical services to Arctic drilling. Things like what will ice thickness have to be for Pacific Western Airlines to land a fully loaded Hercules airplane with a drilling rig in it, and without it going through the ice. No one in the world had ever done that before. And there's Elmer. There he is, you know, and his employee.
Associated Engineering was one of the 5 firms that signed up as CEA members in 1978. Both Norm and Stan Lawrence have supported CEA since and have set an example of how consulting engineering contributes to Alberta.
Norm is, I call him truly an icon in the community. People know that Norm, after he left the military, became a founding partner of Associated Engineering.
He was, I think, always looking for that next horizon. Was a pioneer in the north in terms of the permafrost engineering. He was one of the very first people to establish a consulting engineering company, and deserves credit for building both an organization and an industry that's very healthy and contributes to society in Alberta.
Norm's been retired for several years now. He continues to demonstrate an interest in engineering affairs and also in the community. Well, Stan is a 1957 graduate from the Faculty of Engineering at the University of Alberta, and that's when I graduated. He worked for Associated in Saskatchewan on projects, particularly water treatment plants. He was involved in the E.I. Smith water treatment plant that we have in Edmonton, and he was seconded to Bechtel to work on the design of the Syncrude plants. He's made a significant contribution to the engineering infrastructure that we have in the province as well. And of course, then he was a CEO of Associated Engineering for in the 80s and early 90s. And he's been a director of that company for many years.
Stan should be remembered for certainly his strength of character, his resolve, his integrity, and his vision in terms of what a consulting engineering firm should look like, how it should function. Very, say, business-oriented, but recognizing that you shouldn't compromise service to clients and quality of work or innovation in terms of your work, that they have to go hand in hand. I think Stan deserves this award as he really personifies a consulting engineer. Technically very strong, innovative in water process engineering, but also able to move into that corporate environment and establish a very successful engineering company that benefits society today.
In the late 1980s, CEA recognized the need to create awareness about the consulting engineering industry's talent and capabilities. With much work and lobbying, the Consulting Engineers of Alberta Act was proclaimed in 1993.
There were some major projects coming on, and that the industry needed to basically plant a flag in the ground, rally the troops around, And the way to do that was determined that we should have some legislation which would draw attention primarily by the government, but also by members in society and the industry itself. One of the lobbying efforts was we sent out basically a form letter to the senior managers or presidents of all of the CEA member firms. And we said, why don't you put it in your own words and send it off to the Premier or to the government. What they did was they talked to all their staff, and their staff sent letters as well, so that at the end of the day, I recall that the Deputy Minister phoned me and said, Bill, hold with the letters. My desk is overflowing with letters, you made your point. The government said, well, if the entire industry steps forward and puts it in writing, there must be something to it.
I think the thing that would give me the most pleasure and even pride is the fact that the consulting engineers as an industry has become so well recognized in not only Alberta but beyond Alberta. It's now the only province for which has legislation defining the consulting engineering industry.
The Consulting Engineers of Alberta Act set the stage for CEA to move forward, a momentum that continues today.
In our strategic planning process, we focused in on 5 strategic priorities. To speak with one voice for our industry, our advice is sought and respected, to help shape public policy, to deliver valuable services, and to attract exceptional talent to our industry. So those 5 strategic priorities are really directing the focus of the organization. We want to bring to the table our knowledge as an industry so that the governments can make smart decisions. For a lot of the bigger picture discussions that affect the whole province or bigger picture discussions that affect our whole industry, CEA is the voice, and we're happy to participate in those.
CEA's purpose, what does CEA do? CEA's purpose is to represent the interests of the consulting engineering industry. That there is a fair amount of talent in Alberta. CEA has pioneered, along with some other provincial associations, selection by ability and quality-based selection to make sure that we are not subject to bid competitions where price becomes the only selection criteria.
In my mind, a consulting engineer solves problems. We try to solve our clients' problems, society's problems. Any sort of a challenge that's out there, we want to go tackle it and make it better. Many times those problems involve relationships, money and financing, strategy, not just the technical details. It's all about solving that whole package of problems. So at the end of the day, we can deliver a project or a strategy to our clients that solves all of those needs for them.
Well, the consulting engineer really brings everything to the modern city, modern life, or the country for that matter. Why, if you travel on a highway, a structure designed by an engineer. If you're in a building, you are in an environment which is totally engineered, so you're always surrounded by the unseen hand of the engineer.
Norm and Stan, Elmer and Harold, congratulations on the Lieutenant Governor's Award, and thank you for the work that you've done over the last 35 years helping CEA to get to where we are today. Your forward-thinking insightfulness back then has set us up for success, and we owe you all a debt of gratitude. Congratulations again.